that's just what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Just here to have a little conversation, a little chat.
Great.
All right, we are rolling.
Amazing.
Okay. Scene 1, take 1.
Hi. Welcome to another episode of Between Two Chains. I'm your host, LDF, and my guest today is Nitya and Aditi from Para. Okay, so Para is an embedded wallet solution, which is great because if there's one thing crypto needed, it's another wallet. But seriously, what makes Para different?
Para is different because not only can you easily onboard your users, but you can also have your users reuse those wallets across different apps. So they are universal at the get-go, which we think is fun.
Crypto onboarding has come a really long way. It used to be impossible, but now it's just incredibly painful. So what's the single dumbest UX hurdle you've had to deal with that makes you think like, wow, maybe we should just let the banks win?
Good question.
Lately, my favorite experience to sort of pick on is the do I go from fiat into crypto? Do I bridge from some of my crypto elsewhere? Just the I've got a bunch of money. Maybe it's on chain, maybe it's off chain. How do I get it in the right spot? That every time.
We all have that problem. I have a lot of money. Like, where do I put it?
Right.
That's my problem.
So much money.
Like a lot of money.
Yeah. Right.
Users don't want to think about wallets. In fact, most of them barely want to think at all. So if Para does its job perfectly, does that mean that wallets just disappear? And if that happens, are we all out of a job? What's next?
That's a good question.
I think wallets disappearing as a term is very much the goal. We should instead be thinking about sign-ins, where my information is, connecting my information to the right place. I think it turns into much more of an identity and an almost portability reputation problem.
Mm-hmm. That's very fitting because cross-chain transactions, multiple wallets, signing messages, these are all things that normal people just love doing. Oh, wait, no, they don't. So in a world where clicking one wrong button means losing all of your money forever, how does Para make crypto UX feel less like disarming a bomb?
Oof. Yeah. I mean, the state today is very much disarming a bomb. It's pop-ups, it's bridging, it's selecting the right chain. Oh, wait, I have USDC on all these different chains, but they are all the same asset. Para's goal is to really make that invisible. And so removing all the thinking that users currently do today and just making that as seamless as possible.
I love not thinking. That's my favorite.
Exactly, me too. So as smooth-brained as possible is the goal.
Hell yeah. I love that.
Love that intro. Now that we've gotten the hard-hitting questions out of the way, Aditi and Nitya, I just want to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Excited for this collaboration with LayerZero that we're doing with Rehash. And so I want to get a little deeper into the way that you guys are thinking about interoperability and the multi-chain future that we inevitably have ahead of us. So to start off, I just want to ask, when you guys think about interoperability, what does that mean to you?
For us, kind of information on chain is special. There's a reason why you go through paying gas, signing cryptographically, and it's because of really two properties. The first is that you actually own that information, and the second is that anyone can access that. And portability and interoperability are really the unique primitive. I think another word people use here is composability, which is, of course, just being able to build on top of the existing building blocks. And so we kind of think about this as how do we kind of bring the very best of what's on chain so that you have all the right primitives so that I've probably uploaded my driver's license. I don't know, maybe I do that like 30 times a year. Across some various things. Instead, having attestations that you can bring along with you just to maybe prove certain parts of your identity, having that in a wallet that you own. And that's really what we're building towards.
It's interesting because I feel like a lot of people, like interop and interoperability is like a hot word right now, but people automatically jump to value transfer and like speaking between different chains. But you guys, you've mentioned it a few times now about data and other sources of information. Like, how do you think about connecting Web 2 data and Web 3 data? Like, is it bringing information on chain so that it does have these unique properties? Like, how do those worlds kind of speak to each other?
Yeah. I think with Web 2 data, we found that a lot of users find kind of coming into Web 3 products with their Web 2 identity really familiar. And that UX pattern is, we don't think it's going to go away. And so having that be reusable across a variety of different contexts where, yes, I'm logging into my, logging in through my Gmail account, but I'm accessing maybe, liquidity that I've put into Aave, or I'm accessing like my NFTs that I've minted across different apps. Like having that kind of Web 2 anchor be the hook into the broader Web 3 space is what we found really, really exciting. And having that, to Nitya's point, be composable and reusable across different contexts is, the reason why we think interoperability is so important.
Is that like, are you finding, what is the most important like first piece of information for people to have when they enter crypto? Because again, I know we joked about it earlier, but if you aren't starting with money on chain or, like assets that you've already interacted with before this experience was smooth, like what does that onboarding look like?
Yeah. I think some of there's a couple of initial steps, and they happen in different orders, really depending on what the context is. But I think the kind of non-negotiables are having some kind of wallet address, whether the user knows it or not, but having some way to sign from that user's identity or account or on behalf of it. The second is how do you actually sign and put a transaction on chain, which is having some access to funds in that wallet, whether it's through kind of gas tokens directly deposited in the wallet, other tokens used for gas, connection to a smart contract wallet. But you need some way to pay for that computation, being able to actually put that on chain. And then the third element is identity. And identity is usually the last one to show up. But in contexts like more social networks, it can show up first. But that's really how we start to think about, okay, who owns this wallet? How do they kind of build up a reputation to this identity? And then that's what starts to kind of get you into really like leveraging and starting to benefit from everything that you get from having this identity on chain.
And when you talk about embedded wallets too, is that a wallet that can interact across chains, or does that only solve one piece of the puzzle for the user when they sign up, making the onboarding experience easy, but they still have to deal with the hurdle of then trying to use apps across all these chains with a wallet that may not work?
Yeah, absolutely. The term embedded wallet is, I think, a very convenient way to describe having an application that can initiate transactions directly. But I think beyond that, it's a category that has a lot of kind of nuances and differences between kind of different implementations, different options. I guess when we think about it at Para and in terms of the product that we built, we think about how do you get that ease of use of apps having control of their UX with all of those interoperability and ownership benefits. And so when we provision wallets, it's very, very similar to an EOA in the sense that it's the same wallet that can work across chains. It's the same wallet that can work across apps as well. And so we've done a lot of work to support some of these open standards like Wallet Connect so that a user never has to export a private key in order to get additional functionality from their wallet.
And do you see that applying across the EVM, across EVM and Solana and different ecosystems, or like what's the extent of what is like possible with this?
Yeah, this is what's so exciting about so one very early decision that we made was whether we wanted to build smart contract wallet infrastructure or focus more off-chain. And we felt that there was a lot of great work happening with smart contract wallets, but specifically when you focus on the off-chain cryptography layer effectively, what you can do is provide an account that does work across all of these chains because you're basically interfacing with the cryptographic layer. And so in cases where different chains have different elliptic curves, you can still put that under the same account. It'll be different cryptographically, but you can have, my same email, doesn't matter if it's a Solana app, an EVM, the L1, an L2, maybe an alt VM. It's all the same set of keys and management from an account perspective.
I love this because it's like assuming interoperability is solved under the hood and kind of allows the user experience at the top level to focus on actually being good at what it's supposed to be good at. Like, who's doing the best job at solving the UX problem? Like, what applications are the most forward-looking right now?
Actually, just to take a step back to Nitya's point about kind of focusing more on the off-chain piece, the nice thing about kind of focusing on the cryptographic layer of this is you also offer kind of modularity to developers. So if you wanted to add in some sort of account abstraction features, or if you wanted to add in some sort of like smart account feature set on top of Para, you can do so. And so that was another really exciting piece of, yes, you're allowing this to be cross-chain and interoperable at the start, but also still giving people the flexibility and choice with how they want to build their app. And so that was really fundamental to how we thought about things. To your point on, an interesting app that we're really excited about. We always shout out Haraka, but I'm going to shout them out again. They are an app that allows entrepreneurs in Ghana to receive loans, all based on their social reputation. And so they basically allow users to sign up with phone number. All of this is also connected to M-Pesa, and people can kind of automatically apply for loans, to cash out if they want to as well. And we've just found that use case is really truly bringing more users to crypto in a way that's very unique. And so from that perspective, we found that really that friction of what is a private key? Do I need to now write this down? Like, how do I store it? That can all be obfuscated away, and you can get kind of broader benefits to a society that actually needs, access to capital.
Totally.
And so that's been super, super cool. I'm always a big Haraka fan. I know Nitya is as well, but
It's cool too because like that's one end of the spectrum, and I feel like you guys have a lot of focus and get a lot of credit for this onboarding experience and kind of abstracting away the complexities and scary parts of coming on chain for the first time. But I saw David Phelps like wrote a really nice piece as well about like on-chain native applications and people who do already have wallets being able to leverage that identity and not start over completely. So yeah, could you talk a little bit more about like for the people that have been building on-chain applications, like that was a design choice as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This, I think, builds on what Aditi mentioned earlier around a more modular approach, where we think a lot about how can you kind of bring embedded wallets and add them in. Oh, did I?
no.
Oh, sorry.
My hair was in the shot.
Okay.
It happens. It's a paid actor.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
We can get that. But so we think a lot about kind of offering, to the point Aditi made earlier, a more modular integration experience as well. Even when it means that there's kind of more work that has to be done on our side. And so we do support things like leveraging external wallet connector libraries, in the case of Jokeris Rainbow Kit, in the case of others, Wallet Connect, and being able to add embedded wallets as an add-on, an extension. I think from the developer perspective, that helps kind of incrementally almost widen the funnel and widen the aperture of people who can access an application, where a lot of teams will start with only targeting crypto natives. And then when they've reached a certain point, they'll decide that they do want to cater to a broader audience. But I think to kind of a secondary point there, once you do have funds on chain, everything becomes easier. And I think that's something that really informs our view on interoperability as well, is that we don't want people to have to go between the fiat and crypto worlds necessarily have friction between them. It's not because some provider isn't doing their job or somebody hasn't built a good product. The fiat world is fundamentally reversible. Credit cards have a 30-day repayment period. crypto rails are completely irreversible. And so it would make sense that you have these points of friction. And so once someone's on chain, helping them leverage those assets wherever they can, rather than kind of locking in and putting up walled gardens is, I think for us, just really important when it comes to kind of not getting in the way of user experiences that are going to be beneficial.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes me think a lot too about like getting to the next phase of companies thinking about like retention as opposed to this onboarding moment. Because to your point, like once they have gotten over this initial hurdle of getting money on chain, it's like, now how do we make it as easy as possible for it to stay on chain, do all the things you want to do, and not worry about which chain it's on or really anything else. But yeah, like retention is something that we haven't even gotten there yet for a lot of companies, which I'm really excited about.
I have so many things to say.
Say it.
Okay, great.
Say it all.
Yeah. Well, one thing that really informed our decision on composability and interoperability was retention.
Yeah.
Like if you as an app have taken up so much time in trying to onboard these first 100 users, why should you be onboarding them again in other wallets?
Right.
And so that's kind of our bread and butter. And actually, to your point on kind of interesting apps that are doing this and doing UX in a way that we really appreciate, we found that certain ecosystems are thinking about this a lot.
Okay.
Where if you are trying to onboard a user base, having that user base be in sort of like a sticky wallet that they can kind of leverage across apps is really nice, because now they're, taking the effort to bring fiat on chain and can use that money everywhere. And so that's another kind of point that we really care about, just the retention and the cross app touch points in an ecosystem, because that's what we fundamentally believe. Nitya's done a lot of thinking about this before, but how like crypto is really a function of product flywheels, and you're doing something in one app, you're maybe doing something in another app, and then you're going right back. And that's how people build kind of affinity to the apps they like. And so, certainly core to how we see the wallet world playing out.
Do you feel like these are solved problems now? Like, do you think the education is more about the fact that a lot of these hurdles that we've kind of discussed are, like from a technical perspective, no longer a burden for people building with wallets?
I think there are some things that are certainly still challenges and others that aren't. So things that I think have been more or less solved is getting a wallet address that someone can log into and access. Like that problem is, I would say, very, very far along now. I think the kind of nature of how interoperability works and like who plugs into what apps and where, we take a very user-focused approach where we kind of leverage the user to make the choice around whether they want to connect one embedded wallet or the other, or their existing like wallet extension to an application. But I would say that there's still like some coalescing. I would say best practices maybe. I think that the tech is very much there. And then stuff that has been a little bit tougher is, I think, as we've gotten more and more chains, I think the question of like, how do I even know what my balances are on every chain? Or like, how do I kind of get, let's say I want to have USDC on Optimism. Given the set of assets I have, what's the easiest and most efficient way for me to get there? So some of these routing problems, I think there's a lot of great teams working on it, but that's, I think, the next frontier to getting from not just a wallet with my name associated with it, but a wallet that's ready to transact with my name on it.
One thing that you guys touched upon earlier that I'm curious to hear more about is this like privacy and identity piece that you mentioned, in the intro, and then with the app that you plugged to earlier. I'm curious, where do you see sort of like, do you see that like privacy and identity as the next problem to solve once, the basic problem of interoperability with wallets is solved? And how do you see interoperability playing into this, like solving the problem of privacy and identity?
Absolutely. The thought we have right now around this is, and I would say this is very much informed by on-chain privacy still being very nascent, is we effectively think about off-chain information as default private and on-chain information as default public. Where off-chain information, let's say I've connected my Google account and there's a wallet associated with it, that linkage should only be shared with an application where I have, as a user, specifically granted it. And that, even when we think about profiles and being able to kind of add additional identities, like link my Farcaster or link my Lens profile, all of those linkages should be default private. But I think as we kind of go into identity and reputation, AI is, I think, the elephant in the room here, where whether it's a human-owned wallet or an agent-owned wallet, being able to accrue reputation and proof of work is, I think, going to become increasingly valuable as it becomes cheaper and cheaper to spin up an identity. Like just having a wallet key pair on chain doesn't mean much. And that's where even being able to build up a reputation across the different products that you're using starts to become more and more valuable.
So interesting. I love the identity space.
I know
especially.
that's something that
I'm
you
like,
probably
oh.
have thoughts on too.
Well, it's just so interesting, again, like as we think about just different types of data being on chain and being like usable. Like the reason we transact in most cases is because we're trying to do something that has to do either with other people or services. And that data has up until this point not really been super accessible. And that's why, like, from an interoperability perspective, like, yeah, syncing balances it's accounting. And now for us to get to do more fun things with that money and reputation is just such an exciting space to be building in. And again, like I think being able to allow more developers and product people who don't necessarily need to know about all of this infrastructural stuff under the hood, like to just build amazing applications that leverage information that they otherwise would never have been able to access is just like, oh, it just gives me chills.
Yeah. I figured you'd have some perspectives on it. Like, I think one thing that LayerZero does really well is giving people a ton of optionality. Like, I think that's very, very important to you guys, and we see that important as well. On the privacy point, we also allow people to create a embedded wallet for an app they're accessing, even if it's already universal. So let's say I'm accessing an AMM and I'm doing some sort of DeFi activity on it, and I want that activity to be private and relatively siloed. I can just create an embedded wallet just for that app. And so to the privacy and identity point that both of you were talking about before, maintaining optionality for both the developers and the users is something that we've found largely successful because it just gives people more choice.
Yeah.
And freedom to build whatever they want.
I'm so curious. Because a lot of this work is being done and it makes a ton of sense, but like for an individual user, like how do you view, I don't know, for organizations or like people who are sharing access to things, like how does that become increasingly more complex with permissions and
Yeah. It's definitely a space that's starting to be explored. So we do have teams that we work with that are building more like team management software, automation software. This might be something like, let's say you have a treasury that you want to set up some automations around. Still, I would say the model tends to be for any sort of multiplayer activity, having a contract account and then having multiple signers on it is the best way to have an on-chain record of where transactions originate from. And that's usually a very desirable property for anything like treasury management. But I don't just mean treasury management in the millions of dollars sense. I even mean it in maybe like the roommates like budget for soap sense. So, but being able to just have that fragmentation of, in the roommate case, somebody leaves the apartment, you take them off the multi-sig. And so getting certain properties, that's the format we've seen. And then on the permissioning side, that's really emerging at all layers right now. So of course there are session keys that we're doing to have permissions on smart contract accounts. Those are on-chain. We also have a set of off-chain permissions that users can add to their wallet. So you might allow an application, let's say you're logging into a game, you might let that game sign the transactions to play the game, But for any in-game purchase that's larger than, let's say, 5 USD, you want to see a pop-up. And maybe for anything larger than 100 USD, you want to do a 2FA. And so being able to really set these granular rules around exactly what an application can do to sort of hit the efficient frontier of good UX, but also kind of explicit approval when it's required.
Definitely.
Are there any trade-offs, like I'm thinking security in particular, with making things easier and more convenient for the end user? Because I feel like historically, even in Web 2, there always seems to be a trade-off between, you either care a lot about your privacy and security, or you care a lot about convenience and you optimize for that. But it's hard to optimize for both.
Yeah. We similarly think a lot about the sort of efficient balance between these two things, where one thing that we feel very strongly about is in our auth model, to access a wallet, let's say I log in with my phone number, we also have the user set up a passkey. And that just adds an extra protection where a Web 2 system is fundamentally reversible. If somebody gets into one of my like mobile SMS accounts and does something malicious, there are often going to be ways that I can take recourse on that. Whereas if someone, let's say I have just a phone number connected to my wallet, and somebody is able to manipulate or phish me or get access to that, there's really nothing that anyone can do about it. And so that's where we've sort of leveraged, and we talk about this as a difference between authentication and authorization, where authentication is a way to identify an account and identify a user. Authorization is a way to approve the movement of funds or the like signing of some information. And those two things are different. And so I think it's a case where I think in the embedded wallet space in general, these two things are often conflated and can have kind of challenging consequences, where I think we do have to remember and keep the perspective that at the end of the day, we are dealing with a system that is irreversible. And therefore, we do need to take certain things seriously. So it's like putting the right guardrails on that.
I think it's also really cool to, at least from in my perspective, like decouple some of those permissions from the app layer to like the person themselves. Because as you mentioned at the beginning, like being able to actually have control of the information at the source level yourself, as opposed to like you granting access to a database that a company owns. Like you can, in theory, override some of these defaults, at least at the app layer. So as you said, like some people who do care more can ideally set those permissions a little bit more strictly than someone who doesn't. And I think that's like still quite an underexplored space. But one of the other like vectors of security and privacy that I'm curious about is like this difference between like one single address kind of having all of your information on it, as opposed to, like you said, session keys or things that are just like single use basically. Like how many wallet addresses do you view like people having in the future? And like, yeah.
How many is too many?
How many is too many? Yeah.
Well, I think today, the state we're in today, where we've come across a variety of people that are like using Sheets to manage all their wallets, where they're like, oh, I have this wallet here, and they just have a tracker. I think that's certainly like not sustainable. Nitya has a really good analogy about the credit card system that I think would be very valuable here. So I'm going to actually pass it off to you. But yeah, I think that's going to match very well to this question.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. So the first is, I think wallets they're like a transit for data. And it's a very abstract term, but it's a way to like transit money through something or transit information through something. And we have so many ways to do that in the Web 2 world. We just don't have to manage a million seed phrases in the Web 2 world, which is why we're not really upset about it. Yeah. But for example, in our financial lives, most of us probably have at least one credit card, probably several, at least one debit card, probably several, maybe a brokerage account, maybe checkings account, maybe multiple checking accounts, savings accounts, maybe a 401k.
Joint accounts.
Gift cards, cash in the wallet. Yeah. Like we have all sorts of forms of value. And so I think it is inevitable that that's not all going to be one wallet address. But what we want to do is also, as far as possible, allow users to nest that under an account if they'd like to. So you're only having to kind of remember or authenticate in as many ways as you want to.
Yeah.
You're not forced to set up a brand new login or like make a burner email just because you want to buy an NFT from a fresh wallet. And so just giving people more power over that.
Yeah. That permissioning system is really key though, because that is what will allow kind of you as a user to delegate like certain funds or certain access to an app. And so in this model of like, you have tons of checking accounts, you have tons of savings accounts, you have all these gift cards and credit cards. That's kind of the analogy to what we're getting at with a para wallet with like a set of permissions that
Totally.
kind of gates access to certain apps or funds.
And oh, by the way, none of those accounts you described are going away, right? So it's like we're just adding even more to that list with on and off chain information, which is just like, I don't think a Google Sheet's gonna do it for us.
Going back to your credit card analogy, though, I don't know if this is going off on a little tangent, but using that analogy, like when we think about people that have multiple credit cards, why do we have it? Well, maybe it's because we see an ad for Capital One Venture and they're like, you get a sign up bonus and you get this and that. And we're like, oh, great. Like I want that. And so we have a Capital One card and then another company card and all these different companies, and they're rivaling each other in terms of offering the best things for their customers. In an interoperable world, in the Web3 world, where do we see individual blockchains sort of, like, I don't know if losing is the right word, but not having those unique properties that set them apart from each other? Like right now, when we think about one chain versus another, we kind of think this chain is good at X and that chain is good at Y. And they have certain apps, if you want to build a consumer app, you go to one chain. If you want to build an infra app, you go to another chain, or whatever the case may be. In an interoperable world, do we see it as like, from the user perspective, there is no differentiation between chain one and chain two, like this credit card and that credit card, it's all the same?
I think we're already seeing not the on the differentiation piece as much, but on the to take the credit card analogy, we are seeing certain chain ecosystems launch smart contract wallets or go really deep into smart contract wallets or on-chain accounts, and that being kind of an angle of differentiation. So I do think we might reach a world where, similar to at the grocery store, I use the card that's going to give me the best rewards.
Right.
Maybe I use the wallet that I have Paymaster credits on.
Yeah.
So I do think that's where we're already starting to go, where chains are thinking about how do I create kind of the best possible experience within my ecosystem, and that usually involves something around an interoperable signer. It usually involves some kind of contract account with kind of permissions for the right applications, going deep. I think we are actually in a period right now of, we had this big period of unbundling and like everyone was building kind of the different building blocks. I think now we're putting a lot of the pieces together, and teams are getting opinionated, where there's a lot of, I would say, kind of excitement around going deep and building the best experience on my chain or on this other chain. And that's something that we see a lot. And so I think that'll net be good for folks. It might lead to a similar set of maybe there's that decision point that needs to happen of which wallet do I use. But I think that already is happening a little bit, where I do think about like, okay, which wallet do I have funds on this chain in? But hopefully the chain side of that the friction to go between the chains will hopefully be a little bit lower.
Yeah. To add on that, the other differentiation point that comes up a lot is this going deep is really big in certain ecosystems, where certain wallets will showcase like certain apps that are really big in their ecosystem, and like a discovery tab. Like we're definitely seeing wallets either completely unbundling or becoming the super social app. And like that's kind of the two ends of the spectrum. The other thing that we see a lot too is like yield opportunities in certain wallets, where you can like park funds in a wallet and get, a certain sort of yield based on the chain you're on. So certainly a lot of different vectors in the wallet space that we see chains kind of try to tap into.
I feel like apps are doing the same thing too, and it's interesting. It's not quite as bad at this exact moment in time, but there was a period where it was like an app moving to another chain was like a big announcement or something, and then they like have this whole spiel about how it was like the perfect place for them and they couldn't do what they wanted to do beforehand, and it's like, I don't know, star players on a sports team like moving teams.
Free
Yeah,
agency.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like that kind of wore off pretty quickly because people were like, I don't actually like your app's still the same app, you know. I don't really care what chain it's on. Yeah.
Yeah,
I-
I guess from a user perspective too, like it's not so much a question from the user perspective as it is from the builder perspective.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
Users are just gonna use whatever apps
It's
they
just
wanna
incentives. Yeah,
use.
exactly.
Right, yeah.
And like whether that's from the infrastructure provider that's giving you something or
Right.
what you're displaying to the end user, like, yeah, there's
Totally.
it's all interchangeable a little bit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I have a final question.
Okay.
I know we're kind of getting up on time, and I feel like I could keep going for a really long time. This is so great. But you guys have kind of alluded to this a few times throughout this conversation, but assuming all of the problems that we've kind of covered are solved and like blue sky, either things that you feel like you're surprised haven't been built already, or like what are you really excited to see people design space like explore if interop is solved?
I'm personally really excited about the like personal. So I come from fintech,
Okay.
so I'm very excited about the personal finance super app,
Okay.
uniquely possible on chain. And what that looks like is I have my funds deposited in Aave. They're earning some interest for me. Whenever I want to, or whenever I want to kind of make a purchase, the right amount is just debited. It's like automated value movement. Then let's say I want to qualify for a loan. I can use my lending or my borrower history to qualify for maybe a favorable loan. Further, I could even put up some of this kind of earning yield, like kind of lent out assets to get a more favorable rate. And so you end up in this world where when there's no artificial lock-in, we are just in much greater control of our value and of like our own upward mobility. I think that's something that is really powerful. And the pieces are there, they're getting put together,
Exactly.
but that's the like composability fever
Yeah.
dream.
Well, yeah, because crypto, the pieces are there. Like there is the composable like DeFi kind of building blocks. Things are cheap now.
It's just painful.
It's just painful, right? Yeah, I had a very similar like pie in the sky kind of idea
Yeah.
where there's so many apps and things that I'd want to try if I could just like set an automation for. We always talk about internally that like the biggest friction to crypto right now is so much requires human intervention in the loop, like someone pushing a button here, transacting here, claiming some yield here, but automating all of that and just setting it and forgetting it. That's what we do with our bank accounts today, where we are automatically paying off our credit cards or we're automatically moving money every month into like a brokerage account or whatever. That is kind of the dream, because right now everything is still so fragmented and still
You don't
so
want to be like staring at the 5-second charts and like moving everything yourself, waiting 7 days to bridge
Oh my
something. You guys don't want that?
I mean,
We've been living that.
We've been living that for a second.
as a little treat.
Yeah,
there, done
as a
that.
treat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I think for me, I just like want to go back to that app example you gave. What was it called? Haraka. I think for me, like one of the things that initially got me interested in DeFi years ago was just this prospect of creating this new financial system that makes it more equitable for people, easier for people of different backgrounds to secure loans and to, get basic financial things that they need in life, which aren't possible in the traditional space. And it feels like we're reaching a point with, in this utopia world that we've painted, where that can be possible. And it already is possible with apps like Haraka. And maybe that can be possible in other places around the world globally in the future as well. I think that's what really excites me, is like this like ideal world that people talked about, 5 or more years ago, that it seems like nothing has come of it. Like it feels like now we can actually start taking steps towards that. And that to me is like super exciting.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with one of my Uber drivers this week on the way to the ETH Denver venue, and his like again, a lot of these things we're talking about are not some crazy like vision of how we need to, like, the financial system is broken. We're fixing actually very basic things, right? Like move money faster, give me access to my information. Like I want to have a return on the money that's sitting in an account somewhere. It was funny because we almost went too far the other way of trying to promise like the 45,000% APY and like the 1000x. And it's like normal people just want to make sure they're not going to lose the money that they're earning. And that's enough, you know, like we actually are bringing, I feel like, the bar down a little bit to say solving problems that we deal with on a daily basis are just as important as these crazy swings that you're going to retire tomorrow that no one actually needs or wants, and come with a ton of risk vectors with them. And so, yeah, it's funny that we almost come back full circle to being like, hey guys, remember when we used money in a worse way on a daily basis? Like, let's just fix that just a little bit.
It's like the crypto Twitter echo chamber, though. Like you just see like the screenshot of Phantom and someone like all the all their net worth in there, and you just feel like that is the reality of what your crypto experience needs to be. But in reality, like crypto is helping so many people that do not have access to traditional markets, and that's very exciting. And we just have forgotten through the process of like being in this space for so long.
Well, that reminds me too. I think it seems to me like we started in, Web 2, TradFi, all of this stuff, and then we way overcorrected towards the opposite end of the spectrum, and we're finally like maybe starting to rebalance a little bit and get to the middle and figure out what can we take from the traditional space that is actually like works really well, tried and true,
all the time,
used, tried and true, and incorporate that into this new stuff that we're trying to build and make it better instead of just rejecting everything that used to be as bad.
Yeah, so much of it is there's just a different level of patience and a different level of kind of time horizon for some of these things. And I think some of that is, I think the commitment to like talking about the products that are kind of putting one step in front of the other and like chipping away at these big, big problems. So I think something that I'm excited to see all of us kind of continue to do. And it's tough because I think the stuff that happens overnight and that overnight like big hockey stick is usually what kind of captures the most attention. But it is sort of those accumulated steps over time that like really, really solve problems. 100%.
What behaviors are going to be around in 10 years in the first place, right? I love it.
And that starts from not throwing away what we have.
Totally.
'Cause it's working.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
we came this
we
far.
just need to
we don't need to like throw it away.
Yeah. We just need to kind of bring in the crypto to bring in the benefits of the interoperability and composability to bring it all back.
Wow, look at you.
Yeah, I know.
Wrap it up.
And a nice little bow.
Beautiful.
Well, can you guys tell us where we can find you and where we can check out more about Para before you go?
So Para, our website is getpara.com, and our socials are linked there. I guess I'm Nitya, and I'm _ Nitya S on Twitter.
Cool. I'm Adits, ADEETS _22.
Love the underscores. And it's Para, Para.
Correct.
Yep. Just because we had a whole conversation about people not knowing how to spell that.
Yes, important.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your weekend at ETH Denver.
And this was Between Two Chains.